First of all, we really want to thank everyone for coming. The entire Happy Medium team is very excited that you're here. This is our first inaugural event, and it seems to be going great, so we would love to continue this moving forward in the next coming years. So how we're going to do this is we're going to start by having all the panelists introduce themselves so you can get a little bit of their background and where they're at now, where they come from. And then I want to open it up to Q&A to the crowd. So if you guys have any burning questions that you really want to get answered by these experts, we will have them available to answer those. So let's start with you, Josh.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Josh Krakauer. I'm the winner of question 1 and 3 from the social media Q&A. I also run a social media agency based in Iowa City called Sculpt, and appreciate you inviting me out to Des Moines. I like any excuse I get to come out here, so thank you.
I am Katie Stocking. I'm the founder and owner of Happy Medium. Thank you all so much for being here. It means a lot to us, and we're so excited. But yeah, we are Happy Medium. We're an interactive agency in Des Moines. We do all full service agency, everything, and then everything that a lot of our clients are scared of on the internet. So we talk them into doing it.
Hi, I'm Mike Templeton. I'm a digital marketing manager at Kum and Go out in West Des Moines. At Mike Templeton on Twitter. I haven't been back to Raccoon River in a while, but it's great to see a lot of new faces and new folks here, and hopefully we can be helpful and semi-entertaining for all of you.
I don't know if I can follow that. I think it's pretty good. My name is Ketelsen. I am an online garden editor for Better Homes and Gardens. Prior to that, it was a growing marketing effort that I did with small businesses for companies, and I worked with a lot of small businesses to get themselves acquainted with social media. My handle is Ketelsen, S-E-N, and if you want to tweet at me, get after it.
Okay, well, I'm going to kick it off with the first question, and then hopefully someone in the crowd will have something to follow. So we're just going to, whoever, we don't have to have everyone answer. If whoever wants to take this, you can take it. So the first question is, what advice do you have for a business or public figure creating and managing a good reputation online? I'll jump by one.
You guys should have sat closer if you can't hear very well. Should have sat way closer, and I'll just keep putting this closer and closer to my mouth. I think one of the big things about taking care of your reputation online is that if you don't take an active role in managing your business's reputation, the internet will manage it for you. With the advent of review sites and social and everything else, if you don't have people out there talking about your brand, your company, you're probably wrong, you probably are. It's easiest just to do a search or set up Google alerts, and you'll see how often your name comes up and new articles and things like that. And so just like you might pay attention to people who walk through a storefront or people that email in to a customer service line, you have to start getting active with social channels and keeping an eye on those things so you can get a kind of full picture of what's being said and how you're perceived in the market.
Great, thanks, Mike. Okay, do we have any questions from the audience? Anyone want to be the first up to bat here?
I argued with my friend about this. She says that telephone book ad is no good, that you need a website, because most people get their information, or even a phone number for a law firm from the internet, not the phone book. Anybody have the fact on that?
We get literally asked this question every single day by our clients because most of our clients are locally owned small businesses that have been doing yellow pages in the newspaper for a lot of years and having a lot of success. So where we, as Happy Medium, stands on it is, although those things can be very successful, we don't feel like you necessarily need to cut all of those, but you do need to jump into the digital world. And like Mike said, people are talking about you online whether you're ready for it or not. And so we don't say you necessarily need to cancel those. Obviously, budgets do constrain you from needing to choose sometimes, but we try and help our clients go traditional and into the digital world with a nice mix of both. But at this point, where we feel like the world is with advertising placing, skipping out on all traditional or all digital is not a recommended avenue of that. Yellow Book, you know, everything, and we also always say, like, everything in advertising will work, it's just what will work the best for the least amount of money. And digital certainly is very cost effective and the way that things are going, so you can either kind of jump on the bus now or you can jump on it later, but now is recommended, but canceling everything you've done traditionally, we don't usually recommend to our clients.
I just want to add that think about what your habits are.
To kiss it.
When I find a cool company or somebody I think that's really cool, the first thing I do is to see if they're on Facebook, because I want to stay in touch with them. Very rarely will I go to their website, and I'm driven there quite often by their Facebook posts. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out where you are and how to stay in touch with people and where you want to be.
How many people here have the yellow pages in front of them right now? Who's got it? No? How many people here have a mobile phone connected to the internet? Just about everything. I know, and I hate that excuse. It's just, but it's a great reason. And I think we are a connected generation, and it makes sense.
All right, who's next?
Hi guys, thanks for coming out to share with us. It's a nice event. My question's for Mike. I work in business to business with a lot of business organizations, but I'm really interested in business to consumer organizations as well, like Kum and Go. And I was just curious with, I saw that Kum and Go is going to stop accepting paper checks on July 1st. I was wondering if you might be able to share with us how it fits into your overall social strategy and really into ushering consumers into the digital age.
It's a great question. And I think it tackles on what we just touched on almost with Yellow Pages and the mediums that people are using. From the Kum and Go perspective, we went through with our business intelligence team, with our operations group, and we looked at checks as a form of payment. We looked at who is using them and how many people that amounted to, the amount of dollars it was, the cost associated with it, the speed, the quickness, all those sorts of things. And we measured it back to what we want to be as an organization, which is to deliver speed and convenience and fast, friendly service and those sorts of things. And we had to weigh both options. And I think you look at payment vehicle, what's happening in payments with people moving away from cash and even away from credit cards in some cases into being completely mobile-based for payments. And I think that putting a flag in the sand or a line in the sand around checks is kind of one way of us saying, look, we're a company that's moving into the future. We're going to be around. We're not going anywhere, but this is where customers are going, and we need to follow in their footsteps. And yes, there are still people that take checks, or people that write checks, and there are still businesses that take checks. But I think too, if you look around, you walk into businesses, you see placards saying, "Hey, sorry, we don't take checks anymore." And it's created some hubbub locally because we're a big company. It affects people, but it's really about where the market's going, where people are going. We want to make sure that we're on the forefront and staying ahead of those things, as opposed to being left behind or being seen as a laggard. We want to be innovative. We want to kind of match the footsteps of our customers. And so, the check payments is one of those ways that hopefully we're putting that out there to say, look, we're coming along with you, and we want to be your choice.
All right, who's up? Okay, here we go. Who's getting left to ask?
With traditional media, typically your frequency is determined by your budget. That's usually the constraining factor. With social media, when you don't, where it's free, essentially, how do you walk the line between, quote free, how do you walk the line between providing relevant content that people want without spamming them?
Yeah, no, simple answer. No, but again, that actually brings up a good point, is that there is no best practice. I don't truly believe in best practices, but I think you can find that what's great about social media is that you do have data that will tell you that our audience is dropping off when we post 3 times a day, and where engagement goes down significantly at a certain frequency. So what's great about social is that you do get to determine this answer through real data. And that's kind of a roundabout answer, but the truth.
Just to piggyback on that, for our company, for example, when we bring on a new client that's either not doing a lot with social media or already is, we have this period of time, usually from 3 to 6 months, where we're testing all different ways out. So we're posting 4 times a day, and then sometimes we're posting once every other day, and we're watching how those metrics are changing and growing. And because every community we manage is so different, that none of them, there's no science. The question we always get from clients right away is, how many times a day are you going to post on my Facebook, and what are you going to write? And we don't know the answer until we figure out what their audience is going to want to do and when they're going to want to discuss and what that conversation is going to be. So it's really just paying attention, and not for a week, for months, and trying to figure that out.
I just want to add that sometimes you can mix up what you post, particularly on Facebook. Sometimes it's just a link, sometimes it's a picture, sometimes it's a feel-good picture. It's cats kissing on the couch, I don't know. Sometimes that gets your audience engaged. So not only are you concerned about what you're posting, but how often you're posting and what you're posting.
I think the other big thing is you have to look at who your customers are and what you do as a business, what sort of service you provide, how you fit into their life. Because I think everyone thinks that their customer and the relationship that they have with them is the most important relationship that customer has with anyone. So, if you're a utility company and you're sharing one thing a week, maybe that's okay, because I don't really care to hear from my utility company every day, every hour. I think that's when if you look at things like best practices or case studies that come out about, the top brands on Facebook or whatever, a lot of them are more lifestyle oriented, or things that people interact with on a frequent basis, like Kum and Go. But it's just one of those things where you have to evaluate, who you are and what you do, and then adjust that frequency accordingly. You think about too, I think of like a local example, Kenny's bail bonds. I don't know that they're on social, but they can be okay running a commercial every night on late night TV, and people won't get tired of it, because it fits for that audience that they're going after in that time of day. You don't get tired of it. But if somebody were to go on Facebook and post the same thing day after day after day, you're going to say, hey, this doesn't fit in this medium. I don't want to see this here. So you just have to be careful of that and pay attention to, like I said, that relationship that you have with your customers, and figure out how you fit into their life, and be okay with the fact that you might not be the most important thing to them. If you can find that balance that works, that they appreciate, that's what you're after.
Okay, I've actually got a Twitter question from our friend Zach Edwards. I know he's here somewhere, but he wants to know, what do you all think about auto-messaging new Twitter followers?
So best practices says don't do it. Honestly though, I think the context truly matters. And for the most part, I would say yes, it's annoying. Now, where does it make sense? Well, certain legal, restricted industries, it makes sense. You want to send them a message right away that says, hey, we can't talk about a certain subject. That makes sense. As a tool, it also could be extremely valuable to send that initial message to explain who you are. But as a best practice for most people, I would say it's pretty spammy. But I've seen it done well every once in a while, so I can't say that it's always bad. That's it.
And I just want to take a quick second. I know we got a Twitter comment about the volume, and it's as loud as it goes, but we do have some chairs scattered up front here too if anyone wants to move closer. Brief little message. Who's next? Thank you all for coming. I was just curious if you all do the social media for a job, like a lot of us do here, how do you avoid burnout personally as well? Like if you're doing it for your job all day at work and you go home and you all have personal Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, how do you find that balance in your life in your off hours too? Did everyone hear that?
Balance is a daily struggle, especially if you're expecting, if you have babies, and it fluctuates. I think you just have to check yourself occasionally and recognize if you're burning out, why am I burning out, and where is that at? The one thing that I see a lot of companies do is they get really excited when they first roll into social media, let's say at Facebook, and they're posting 3 times a day, twice a day. And then the only thing I can think of is if you're not able to withstand that stamina, then maybe you should start slow. Just take it easy, and that's okay.
So on the way here, I got a message asking if I was going to get here in time. And I replied, it was to my personal account, and I replied, and I almost signed off with my initials, which is how I sign off every message that comes into Kum and Go. I sign it off with my initials, people know who it is. And I almost replied with my initials on the end of my personal message. So that's an example, I mean, exactly what you're talking about. And I think that for me, especially when you're operating kind of under, for a business, you're also always on. It's not really the type of job, depending on the industry, it's not really the type of job that you can walk away from at 5 o'clock and then come back in at 8 in the morning and pick it back up. So I think that, like Katie said, you just have to look at, what you're doing, what you're looking for out of networks. I just find myself participating a lot less. Personally, just because you have that burden of representing an organization. But then too, I try to spend, in the evenings or whatever, I'll do a lot more just kind of consumption, or I may interact, with people in blocks of time where I've kind of blocked out and said, hey, this is me time, this is what I'm going to do. But it can be difficult. And I think that's one of the things too where, kind of like Katie said, you maybe need to go back to your employer or the organization you work for and say, hey, maybe we need to look at how we're resourcing for this position, or we're seeing a lot more interaction with customers or users or whoever, and we need to look at how we're staffing this, and we need to break this up between a couple people so that you can get a little bit of that time back.
Okay, I need some involvement from this side of the room, so I've got a free drink ticket for whoever got a question.
What is the best way to build your Twitter audience? I've actually hit the followers, or the following limit, and it's more about the ratio of followers to following. So what strategies would you employ to build that audience, to market yourself, or what tools would you use to balance that ratio?
I'm taking this first, Leslie, because it's you. The most important thing I think for Twitter is to provide relevant content for people. And that can be a broad range of things. And it boils down to who your personality is and what you find interesting. When I'm mom, I'll tweet about mom stuff, I'll tweet about garden stuff, and I'll tweet about social media stuff. So you have to find that nice balance. I think it's important to also engage with people. What I've missed in the last couple of years with Twitter is I feel like there's less engagement going on. There's less conversations, there's a lot more shouting, and I'm guilty of that myself. But maybe you need to also take a look at who you're following. And there's something to be said to critiquing who you want to follow. When's the last time they tweeted? What kind of content are they providing? Is it relevant to me? Something that I look for when I analyze somebody whether I want to follow them, sometimes it's deeper than other days. Are they engaging with those that they follow? And that's a big key to me, and that's just purely based on what I want to get out of Twitter. So take that into consideration.
I think for us, between all the different types of clients that we have that we tweet for, we've noticed that there are a couple of things that stand out for all of them to get followers faster. And one of the biggest ways is the more tweets you do a day, the more followers you're inevitably going to get. If you do one tweet a day, you're probably not going to get that many followers. But if you're constantly tweeting and tagging people and hashtagging things, your followers, will change overnight, thank you. And that will be a big thing. Also, the engaging with people, I would say, is the biggest thing too. If you're tweeting back and forth with people, like obviously we're all here, we posted our, Twitter handles everywhere and put that all in front of you to make sure it's always out there. I think just always talking about it those are the two biggest ways that no matter what the brand we're dealing with, that qualifies to both of them.
Yeah, she brings up a really good point, which is we're asked probably just as often as you are, which is how much is too much tweeting, right? How the frequency, how much is too much? And really, I don't think anyone, until you're at a very, very high level, can say that you've been bombarded with someone's tweets that's just out of control and you've tweeted 6 times a day. For the most part, I would say that it's difficult to do. I think HubSpot actually did some research which showed that something like 20 tweets or so still wasn't too many a day. So if you look at the people who have the most followers, who have the biggest audiences, they do have a higher frequency of tweets. The other way that you're not supposed to say is that there's also automated tools which you could use, which can help maintain a ratio, for instance. Tweet Adder is one of them. And they're tools which are, I think actually Tweet Adder might have had some trouble with Twitter recently, but you'd be surprised to find very large brands which use tools like these to help maintain a healthy ratio of follows to followers ratio. And you can use tools like these to help automate the problem of identifying relevant users. So use them if you want.
All right. I have a question regarding reporting back to clients on the progress of the social media accounts. What tools do you recommend? I'm currently using Sprout Social, and I found that the Facebook reporting lags a little bit. It's a week behind, so clients have been asking me, why is my reporting behind? I want to know what happened yesterday. What are the numbers? Have you found any tools that are really good at staying up to date and really current with just reporting back to clients, or just looking at your own accounts too?
I mean, I do like Sprout Social also, but I've never just used an entire raw report. I think there's things that they do great. I think that you'll find, like anyone, that looking at data visually, which is what Sprout Social does really well, is what helps show metrics, which helps understand metrics really well. I think it looks like at least that Facebook insights are being improved. and they're rolling out a new dashboard that hopefully will improve Facebook insights, which, since you mentioned that reporting there is kind of so-so. But beyond that, I've tried just about every tool on earth. I think everyone has, and there's a reason that people keep coming back to those same ones, because they're simple, and unless you're going to spend enterprise level, you're never going to find something that truly that does it in one tool.
One of the things about Facebook is that Facebook data is just behind, period. I think there's actually a site out there called, is Facebook Insights behind.com or something ridiculous like that. It'll tell you, yep, Facebook Insights is 7 days behind. And I think one of the things that you can do about that is you just have to go back and reframe expectations for your clients to say, hey, it's not important for us to be looking at this daily. Like, do they look at their sales numbers daily? Maybe they do, but you think you have to kind of reframe the conversation and say, what is it that we're most interested in? What are the goals that we're tracking to? It's not necessarily looking at, how many likes did we have today, or what was the engagement rate for Thursday? Like, what are you going to do with that information that you need to have it right now? And so if you reframe that a little bit and maybe put it up kind of into the context of what your larger objectives are, or those sorts of things, that might help alleviate that. But you're also at the mercy of the tools to say, well, yeah, Facebook's behind. Well, we don't pay anything, to Facebook for this, so we're at the mercy of their data and their systems.
I enjoy wherever we can use video and short little clips in our social media. Can any of you give me an example of using Vine for real business use? Or perhaps even a new Instagram video feature to tag on to that? Do you think Instagram's video can fill out Vine?
Well, we did do a Vine today for this event, our team did, but I'm not sure that it got anybody additional here. I would say, but I also will admit that out of all the platforms I personally log into for work or, my personal side, Vine's probably the least one. I couldn't remember my password to this morning. I think Instagram video, obviously we've only had about a week and a half to kind of play around with it, but I think that has some potential to take over more, only because there's a lot more users on Instagram. As far as using it for business, I think again it goes back to us. It depends on what kind of business you really have. We have some businesses that, like automotive is great because you can do short videos of the interior of cars, and that's kind of cool. And Mazda's a brand we work with, and Mazda happens to be heavy on Instagram, and so that works. But I would say the majority of our clients, neither is probably a good fit for. But what is a good fit as far as video goes, we have a lot of success with just taking YouTube videos and then posting those. So we'll, for Centro, post them making a drink of the night for happy hour or something, which obviously doesn't translate as well to Instagram or Vine, but I think video in general is great. I'm not sure of Vine's place yet, and I think if anything, Instagram video will be used more than that.
I think you're going to see this for a long time coming, the Instagram video versus Vine debate. I mean, I swore that this question would be asked today, because that's all anyone in social media can talk about right now. And I don't know if that's the right question necessarily. I think your question, the first question, is a better question, which is it right for my brand? And in that sense, anyone that has a story to tell, both of them give you that platform to do so. It just depends if you can do it in 6 seconds or 15. And maybe Instagram video would be better for ones that have a little bit more of a complicated story to tell. 6 seconds.
I just want to add too, I think that as marketers, as people in social, especially you, the bright shining object in the room. And with Vine as an example, within the first 3 days was like, and hey, here's 10 brands that are doing great things on Vine. Lowe's is one of those that I think they actually did some really cool stuff where they put together little quick how-tos and tips and tricks and things about homeowners, which totally fits with their brand and what they're trying to do. But I think as marketers, we have to be careful about trying to thrust ourselves into every single social platform out there. And I think Instagram is still one of those too that people have migrated away from Twitter and away from Facebook and things like that. You see the kind of onslaught of all these more private type networks, things like Snapchat and things like that, where people are saying, gosh, I'm tired of all of this marketing, corporate brand invading my personal communications. And so I think we have to be careful of that as a business, yet you need to align what you're trying to do with your tactics. And yeah, you could put together a 6-second video of something, but is that the right place for that? Are you going to be perceived as innovative, or are you going to be perceived as, spammy or unwanted? And I think it comes down to the value or the utility that you bring into the conversation with that piece. But then, like these guys said too, it's all about like, does it fit? I wouldn't say everyone should be rushing out and saying, oh my gosh, how can we do 6-second videos now and incorporate this into our mix? Because consumers are just getting used to it. Same thing with Instagram. And I think that it's become more accepted on some of these other platforms. They've been around for 5-6 years now. And as you get into some of this newer stuff, consumers are still trying to figure out how they want to use it. And so immediately, if it's being invaded by corporations and these brands and things, then I think that potentially could have a adverse effect and poison the water, so to speak, for consumers.
How many Snapchatters do we have out there? I love it. Caroline just Snapchatted me. I love it.
Going back to basics, what are some good ideas to get more Facebook likes without paying for them?
Running advertising, it's really successful. But really though, I think you have to go back and examine your question. Why is it that you want more likes? This was actually one of the questions they gave us ahead of time, right? That I actually prepared on. I think that when it comes to social, just like any other channel, you want to have scale because you want to have reach. You want to be in front of people. You want your message, your story to be told. But if you're solely focused on, oh my gosh, how can we get more likes? As cheap as possible, I think you have to question what your motive is. There's a lot of cool stuff out there about the power of communities and niche groups of customers and brand advocates and things like that. And you could have a very engaged small group of people around your brand or organization or your company and have them be as effective at kind of moving you towards your goal than 1,000 people who are lukewarm about your organization. So I think you just really have to look at what it is that you're after, what you're trying to do, make sure that matches up, make sure that you really need more people, or if you just need to get, become more effective or more in touch with those folks that you already have.
If you are, a lot of times we get that question and we usually have the same answer as Mike would now. It's more about conversation, but if you're starting a page sometimes, and it's at 0, you want to get people to like it. One thing we've had a lot of success with in the past few months, Facebook allows you now to go in and, if you're an administrator, to invite people via their email, and it will go right there. And that's the first thing we do when we're setting up a client. We ask them to, if they do have a Facebook page, to either give us access or go in there and do that. And that will usually at least get that first kind of 100 benchmark and things that you need to get to start getting analytics and moving on with that, which is a free way. But other than that, once you have the people that are already in your circle or your network, what's the value past that?
The answer you want to hear is great content gets a lot of fans. But the other real answer is that Facebook advertising, really smart Facebook advertising, really is truly useful and applied well. So I think that most people say, well, I'm trying to spend as little as possible, so I don't want to pay to acquire fans, because it's also kind of a perception that if you pay to acquire a fan, that it's not, that you're not going to get someone that truly wants to engage with the brand. But I think that's kind of also the beauty of the platform and how well you can target people that would truly be interested in the brand that would never have discovered it otherwise. So I'm kind of on the fence with anyone else that truly works in social media marketing and knows that paid media really does play a big part in a Facebook marketing strategy.
Any thoughts on Facebook advertising versus promoted messages at this point?
So you're talking about like the typical right rail display type? Yeah, so if you look at any of the studies that have been done on Facebook advertising, click-through rates, all those sorts of things, the right rail, which is your typical kind of the red-headed stepchild display banner of the internet. Sorry for redheads. There's not effective. People aren't paying attention to the right side. I don't know if there are ad blockers and things out there like for Facebook, like there are for other sites, but people are in a mode to tune out advertising. I think that as you've seen, as Facebook has adjusted their ad strategy and the type of units and things they're providing, they're moving into a similar path where Twitter has been, which is saying, let's make the advertising the content. And if you use the advertising to take that message and put it in front of somebody who's potentially going to actually like that, as opposed to let's stuff this into the right side and interrupt them. No one's rushing to log on to Facebook to go look at the ads in the right hand side, right? But if you've got a great message, if you've got good content, you can target it effectively and put it in front of people who may be interested in that. I think you're much more likely to get people to engage and interact with that. And yeah, I mean, if you just go back to the data, the click-throughs are way higher when you see stuff come through in the feed, as opposed to dumping stuff in the right-hand side.
Yeah, I prepared for this question also. No, so there's a reason it's native advertising, and in this case, in Facebook, 90% of the content, that could be a wrong statistic, I don't know. 90% of the content you'll see from a page happens in the newsfeed. You spend most of your time on Facebook in that newsfeed, and if you ask most people, you say, have you ever interacted with a Facebook ad? They'll say no. In fact, the data shows that people will say that in a study they've never clicked on a Facebook ad, and that's false. It's definitely wrong. Not always, but for the most part it is, and that's because most people don't like the sidebar ads. And when you can create a sponsored story, which I'm guessing is along with what you're saying, I guess the only thing I wanted to add is when you said promoted messages, promoted posts, I truly believe you should still use the ads manager or power editor of some form of targeting. I think everyone here who has ever done some form of Facebook marketing has seen now it's called boost posts. Before it was called promoted posts. They're going to change it every 3 months anyway. Just a way, it's a message, basically a button that you can click and you can get your message out to all of the friends and fans, and it creates a nice sponsored story. And that's truly an effective form of Facebook advertising, but it will go out to anyone, whether they're relevant or not. And I think the point is you can create those, and those are effective, but they need to be targeted so that the right people are seeing the right message.
Thanks for coming out here. My question is, what is the most innovative use of social media that you've seen or created yourself, I guess, but other brands are doing things really well that you really enjoy seeing?
This is not necessarily something that this is just shown that it's done well for Bed Homes and Gardens when you work with a big brand like a corporation like Bed Homes and Gardens, a lot of people don't even know it's rooted in Des Moines, Iowa, really. But what's working well for us now is maybe some behind the scenes clips, and when we talked about video previously, just putting faces to a corporation, and you've seen a Reagan t-shirt, corporations are people too, you know. So I think showing a little behind the scenes, I think works well for big brands, particularly even for smaller brands, especially if it's your day-to-day business that people don't even know what you're doing and how that happens.
This isn't only done on social media, but I think one company that does sponsorships well and obviously has a huge social media presence is Red Bull, and they do a great job of precursoring any event they're about to sponsor or big things that are going on about all the conversation that's going to be going on online. And so, you know, not only do they get that one day of sponsorship about it, they get the month before that they're talking about it, and then the day of, everybody's excited about it, and then people continue to carry on the conversation. So I think that incorporating social media into the things that you're also paying for, you know, can also really make a brand stand out well.
I think anytime you can surprise and delight people through social is a great opportunity. So I think about some of the things, Old Spice is way overused, but one of the cool things that they did was how when they had Isaiah Mustafa as the spokesperson, and they did all those personalized video responses to individual people. Like, there was no inherent value in somebody like me getting a personalized response from them like in like 15 minutes, but the people saw what sort of work that took to do that. Wheat Thins is another awesome one, I think, where they went out and found people tweeting about Wheat Thins, and then, you know, showed up and dropped a pallet of Wheat Thins in their driveway, and then they turned it into a TV commercial, and it was on YouTube and everything else. But I think people realize how much work it is, and how much work would go into something like that, and people have an appreciation for that. And then two, it brings that everyday person into that experience, and it really makes them feel appreciated. I mean, even at Kum and Go, like just replying to people who mention us or who, you know, say the name on Twitter, people are like floored that somebody at a big convenience store company would even respond to them and actually single them out as an individual and say like, hey, you know, thanks for saying that. So I think if you can put in the work and you know, use the elbow grease and everything else to actually show people that you care, that they're there, that they said something, and they did something, make them feel appreciated. I think that's really cool, but it takes a lot of work, and it's not easy, and so a lot of people don't do it. But when you see some of those examples of companies that do, and they really put the muscle behind it, I think it really does pay off in the eyes of the consumer.
I just have to say I'm impressed that you know the Old Spice guy's name, because I don't even know his name, I just know what he looks like. But on that note, there are instances that I've seen, not necessarily at BHG, but in the garden world where sex sells sometimes. And there have been videos, little promo UK videos, obviously they're a little misguided in the US, but where guys are running around half naked carrying flowers, and they're like, how would you like your flowers today? But it's all geared towards the demographic that they're going after, and it's women that like sexy men and they like their flowers at the same time. So think about where your demographic is, and maybe try to incorporate that into your marketing.
Does anyone here work for a startup or run their own startup? Yeah. Couple people. I would say one of the most innovative uses of social media is being able to validate a business model or validate a product development. So when you can tie social media to an action, to a discovery of something outside of just straight sales, but do customers like this? Can I identify customers because of this? And I think social media is because of the ability to crowdsource responses from so many people, that's a truly innovative use of it. It's a little bit outside of the typical big brand mentality.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up here with one more question, but I would highly encourage everyone to stick around, keep drinking, partying with us a little bit, and keep eating. We will be around for a while. So, what I want to end it on is all of you can tell me or tell us what your personal favorite social media network is and why. It could be maybe it's Vine, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's a personal blog you have.
Talk about this in the car right up here, because I think it changes every day. But for me, I would say right now it's Twitter. And I think if you were to go check through the activity, all the social activity from this engagement here, most of it would happen on Twitter. And I think that's kind of the beauty behind it and why I spent so much time on it myself. And if you asked me about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I would say Instagram. But I think Instagram now is kind of, it's starting to become why people flocked there, which was to get away from all of the noise. And that's kind of the problem of social media to begin with, but I think Twitter is still amazing for discovering new things, and you can never get tired of it.
I think my personal favorite, this goes back to the question about how do we separate our life from our personal to our work life. And for me, Instagram is a big place where I can just be on there and there's not as many businesses and it's not as commercial and you can take pictures and you look better also. And so that's nice. But I just like Instagram a lot, on a personal level because it's more just based on visual and fun, and there's not a lot of advertising in it yet, but it is switching that way. So,
my personal favorite is an app called Food Spotting. We were acquired by OpenTable, I think, in probably the last 6 months or so. Mostly because you can never feel bad about taking a picture of what you're eating. I think there's a lot of utility in it as well. I love sitting down at a restaurant or a new place to eat, and before you even flip through the menu, you're pulling up Food Spotting and looking at pictures of what other people have had there. I just have a lot of fun with it.
Only Mike Thompson will roll out of the gates with some app that maybe 20% of the crowd here has heard of. I think there's something we said when I'm sitting at home and I'm trying to think of what kind of picture can I post on Instagram to go with what I'm feeling with right now. And rarely does that happen. I feel like Facebook is too much, but generally I'm with Josh and how the platform that I like just swings with my mood and what outfit I'm wearing that day. And some days it's Facebook and some days it's Twitter, and usually it's Twitter because I like that fast action, ADD action.
I just want to say thank you everybody so much for coming. We are so excited at how successful our first year of hosting this event is, and please tweet at It's a Happy Medium account with any suggestions you have to grow this event for next year, because we want to keep celebrating social media and making it a bigger and better, more fun event. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us. We really appreciate all your insight, and as we said, we have the space for a while, so hang out and have fun, and please feel free to come ask any of us questions. Thank you.